Hey everybody, welcome to Slash Bash, where today I am bringing you another Choosing Beggar Reddit video. If you are new to the channel, then subscribe and click on notifications so you don't miss out on the fun. In our first story, just because our OP has a home she lives in by herself, the Choosing Beggars come out of the woodwork. Let's jump right in. I raised 3 children on my own, with some help from my family during the roughest patches. Like when my children's father split the state to avoid paying child support. I was not going to be one of those exes that depended on a child support check, so I went back to college and got back up on my feet again, and we made it. We may not have always had what we wanted, but we sure as heck had what we needed. I bought my house 30 years ago and own it. I am now on disability with some crazy bone marrow condition that leaves me without enough blood and or platelets. I am always tired or sick. My social security disability is not a lot, as I had been a stay-at-home mom for a number of years pre-divorce, but through sheer determination I have learned to live on my disability income. I'm a simple girl. I don't own a car, which saves me a lot, but otherwise I have all I need. I am also happy as a bug in a rug. My children are grown and doing well, and I have a home all to myself and I love it. During this time, I have had all kinds of people, family, friends, and acquaintances come to me and ask if they can stay with me. If someone needs a helping hand up, I'm always willing to help. There have been a few that did what they needed and only stayed a few weeks. Most of the fools I dealt with, though, were looking to take over my home and or reap what I have sown, so to speak. One guy, whom I had occasionally dated, fell on hard times. He came walking up to my house one day, wanting to talk to me about something. I stepped outside with him and he starts. He pretty much says, "We get along fairly well, right? We have a lot in common," etc. He continues with, "Since I am alone in my house, and as it happens he was alone, living in an abandoned travel trailer on some commercial property his parents owned, how about if he moves in with me and we split everything?" I was flabbergasted. I told him I would have to think about it and get back to him. No, I never gave it another thought. I had one couple come over one evening and conveniently their car breaks down and they need to stay over. Then, some other reason pops up in the next day as to why they can't leave, couldn't get the part he needed or some crap. I eventually realized that this was all for the purpose of establishing residence, so I would have to go through a time-consuming, legal, and expensive eviction process to get rid of them. I got rid of them. It wasn't pretty, but my children and I literally pushed his broke-down van off my property and dared him to set foot back on it. Our garden tools, particularly the shovel, served us well. Yet another woman, the mother of one of my son's friends, came to stay as she had literally been put out on the street at her last place. After struggling for a month to pay me anything, she decided she didn't have to pay me any rent. She supported me already. In her pea brain, she figured that since I was on disability, she thought she paid my income with her taxes, so she shouldn't have to give me a dime. No. I get disability in the form of monies I paid in all the years that I worked. Unless she was working with my social security number all those years, she was full of it. She tried to assault me and I had her arrested. One guy called me up during one of his family's crisis and said he needed a couch or some place to crash for a few days, as he and his mom were at blows and one of them would go to jail if the cops got called again. I told him I didn't have a room, but I could offer a roof over his head. He would have to pay rent and provide his own food. A week later, his girlfriend shows up with her teenage son. She and her mom had a fight and she was coming to live with her boyfriend. It took me a couple of days that time, as she had the kid, but I chased them off with a threat to call his probation officer on him. Yeah, fine upstanding citizen. I've learned to keep my distance from the kind of people who seem to always be needy. I don't know what it was, but they came crawling out of the woodwork. I'm a nice, easygoing, laid-back person, and people try to take advantage of me, I suppose. I earned my way, and I am going to enjoy it myself. Thank you very much. Lol. Story number 2 shows us a choosing beggar who pushes her ex-husband around and her kids. My mother has problems. She beats her husbands a lot. My father divorced her for this, and she used my sister and I as a reason to keep his medical insurance and his personal bank account. Well, a few years ago, a lot of money was suddenly removed from the account. A lot. A couple $1,000s apparently. She had been using the child support checks to do stuff with my current stepfather, concerts, trips, nice dinners. My dad paid $400 every 2 weeks. Her repayment for making it easy? Not being allowed to see us for 9 months. Because this happened out of courts and no one wanted the law involved, my father had to deal with it. He didn't know I was wearing the same clothes over and over because I kept outgrowing them, or that my sister needed glasses, or about the health and safety issues we had to deal with. When I was in 7th and 8th grade, she relapsed to using heroin, just as she had when I was an infant. She acted so odd and so crude, she made life difficult. Long story short, she nodded off at the wheel and had a bad car wreck. I was in the custody of my father when she bugged him about the insurance. My father's company removed her before the crash, since they were no longer married. She was engaged to someone else, someone 11 years older than me, and she demanded help with the bill. Instead, when he dropped us by to see her, she complained about how horrible my dad is and about how bad he was to her. Even then, I didn't believe a word she said. I told her to stop and to just find somewhere to live for the time being. These are a few examples of how she kinda sucked. She's my mom and I love her, but here's the kicker. I'm 17 now. I've had self-harm issues in the past, and I have a continuously declining mental health. I have a therapist who is wonderful. My mom knows all about this. A few weeks ago, due to no fault of her own, the house she lived in burned to the ground. She lost a lot, but had some money saved to stay in a hotel. She had a habit of keeping animals when she's in no position to. When we were living with her and the heroin, we had a lot of pets, and she pointed out how much nicer to her they were than I was. She couldn't afford to feed her kids. I have no idea why she kept the animals. I had hoped she would rehome the dog she has, but she refused. She spent all her money on a hotel that would take the dog. Yesterday was her last day at that hotel, and while my sister, father, and I were going to see some family, she decided that was the time to try to beg my dad for money for another hotel. The hotel she found that also took dogs was way too expensive, like horrendously so. My dad told her that he didn't want to give that much to her, so she instead asked him to take a picture of the numbers on his card, saying, "I won't screw you over." My father declined. She hung up and called me, saying that my dad was bullying her and she asked me for money. I told her I was broke and that I was in the car with him. She said I didn't need the money and that I should help her out. I told her no. She posted on Facebook about how family should help other family and how it's a daughter's duty to help her parents. I am non-binary. She knows this and misgenders me all the time on purpose when she doesn't get her way. I eventually gave in and sent her enough for one night. She said I was a good person and how she loves me. She makes it so hard to love her. Story number 3 shows us a choosing beggar who has minimum standards when it comes to taking charity. So me and a friend of mine that knows sign language went to McDonald's for some lunch. We decided to do a mobile order because we were in a hurry. We pull up to the curb, tell them we had arrived, and received our food. Shortly after starting to eat, a man approached our car and showed us a card. The first thing it said was, "Hello, I am deaf." This is the conversation in sign language that followed. "Are you deaf?" Choosing Beggar responds with the sign for yes in ASL instead of shaking his head. That sign is a knocking gesture. From this response, my friend was certain he was actually deaf. Okay, how can I help you? I'm very hungry and I don't have enough money to buy food for my family. Well, I have $10, so the least I can do is buy a $10 bundle here at McDonald's. Does that help? That bundle consists of 2 cheeseburgers, 2 10-piece McNuggets, and a medium fry, which is actually quite a steal. Sorry, but I can't accept anything lower than $20. I'm sorry too, because all I have is $10. The bundle really is the best way to go for this amount. Choosing Beggar then pointed to the Golden Corral across the street from us. I was hoping to take my family there for dinner. I'm sorry, but the most I can do is give you $10. What about your friend? Does he have anything to spare? Of course, my friend had to tell me what he said like an interpreter, because I don't know any ASL. Tell him I have $5 to give you. My friend tells the Choosing Beggar what I said in American Sign Language. That still isn't $20. You guys are probably having more trouble than I am. Have a good day. Choosing Beggar was clearly trying to guilt trip us. After waiting for us to possibly change our minds from the attempted guilt trip, he then left and walked across the street. Overall, it was a pretty interesting encounter. I don't know whether to feel bad for him or not. He was deaf, but I feel like he was exploiting his disability for money. However, I hope he does well in the future. In our final story, a Choosing Beggar has a good reason for stealing our OP's newspaper. No one should order more than 1 paper. Much nicer than my newspaper creeper. Because my wife and I worked in different locations, we used to get 2 papers delivered so we could each take one with us. About half of them would disappear before we went out to get them. After upteen complaints to the paper, I got in contact with the delivery guy and had him phone me when he turned onto my street. So I was waiting and saw the papers get delivered. No more than 5 minutes later, a dude walked up my driveway and took a paper from my mailbox. He nearly jumped out of his skin when I opened the door. He returned my paper immediately, but berated me for getting 2 because I obviously, to him, only need 1, and he believed he shouldn't have to pay a quarter at the box to read a paper when I have 2. After that, however, he never came back. This has been John from Bash. Thanks for watching! If you've enjoyed the video and want to see more of them, then please hit that subscribe button. We'd love for you to drop a like, share it with your friends, and we will see you in the next one.